Hello everyone, this is Teacher Elaine, and this time I'm gonna read a very precious book to me, The Little Prince, by Antoine de Saint-Exupery. In this journey, we're gonna find lessons from kindness to caring for our environment and for our relationships. The messages in this enchanting fable are as important today as they ever were. The Little Prince has captured the hearts of readers around the world since he first appeared in 1943. I hope you enjoy it. The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupery. When I was 6 years old, I saw once a splendid picture in a book about the virgin forest called Stories of Life. It represented a boa snake that swallowed a wild cat. This is the copy of the drawing. The book said, boa snakes swallow their prey whole without chewing it. Then they can no longer move and they sleep during the 6 months of their digestion. Then I thought a lot about the adventures in forest and, on my turn, I managed it, with a colored pencil to make my first drawing, my drawing number 1. It was like this. I showed my masterpiece to the grown-ups and I asked them if my drawing frightened them. They answered, "Why should anyone be frightened by a hat?" My drawing did not represent a hat. It represented a boa snake that digested an elephant. Then I drew the inside of the boa snake, so that the grown-ups could understand. They always need the explanation. My drawing number 2 was like this. The grown-ups advised me to put aside the drawings of open or closed boa snakes and to become rather interested in geography, history, calculation, and grammar. That is how I gave up, at the age of 6, a magnificent career as a painter. I had been discouraged by my failure on my drawing number 1 and my drawing number 2. The grown-ups never understand anything by themselves, and for children it's tiresome always giving them explanations. So I had to choose another profession, and I learned how to pilot airplanes. I flew around the world, and geography, that's right, helped me a lot. I recognized at the first glance China and Arizona. This is useful if you are lost at night. So I had, in my lifetime, a lot of contacts with a lot of serious people. I've lived a lot at the house of grown-ups. I saw them very closely. It has not improved my opinion very much. When I met one who seemed a bit lucid, I experienced it on my drawing number 1, that I always kept. I wanted to know if that person had really understood, but the person always answered, "It's a hat." Then I did not talk to that person about boa snakes, neither virgin forests nor stars. I put myself on the same level. I talked about bridge, golf, politics, and neckties. And the grown-ups was glad to know another rational man. Thus, I lived alone, without anyone to talk to indeed, until I crashed in the Sahara Desert, 6 years ago. Something had broken in my engine, as I had neither a mechanic nor passengers with me, I prepared to try to do by myself a difficult repair. For me, it was a matter of life or death. I had scarce water to drink for 8 days. The first night, I went to sleep on the sand 1,000 miles far from any inhabited land. I was much more isolated than a shipwreck on a raft in the middle of the ocean. So you can imagine my surprise at the sunrise when a funny little voice woke me up. It said, "Please, draw a ship for me." What? Draw a ship for me? I jumped on my feet as if I had been struck by lightning. I rubbed my eyes. I looked attentively, and I saw a quite extraordinary little fellow who looked at me seriously. This is the best portrait that later I managed to make of him. But my drawing, of course, is much less charming than the model. It's not my fault. I had been discouraged in my career as a painter by the grown-ups at the age of 6, and I did not learn how to draw except closed boa snakes and open boa snakes. I looked at that apparition with wide eyes and astonished. Do not forget that I was 1,000 miles far from any inhabited region. My little fellow did not seem lost, neither dead tired, nor hungry, thirsty, or scared to death. He did not have the appearance of a child lost in the middle of the desert, 1,000 miles far from any inhabited region at all. When I was finally able to speak, I told him, "But what are you doing here?" And then he repeated, very slowly, as if it was a very serious thing, "Please, draw a sheep for me." When a mystery is too impressive, we do not dare to disobey. As absurd as that seemed to me 1,000 miles far from all the inhabited places and in danger of death, I took out of my pocket a piece of paper and a stylograph. But I remembered that I had studied mainly geography, history, calculation, and grammar, and I tell the little fellow, with a bit of bad mood, that I did not know how to draw. He answered me, "It doesn't matter. Draw a sheep for me." As I had never drawn a sheep, I remade for him one of the only two drawings that I was able, that of the closed bow snake, and I was stunned to hear the little fellow answer me, "No, no, I do not want an elephant in a bow snake. A bow snake is very dangerous, and an elephant is very cumbersome. At home, everything's tiny. I need a sheep. Draw a sheep for me." So I drew it. He looked carefully then. "No, this one is already very sick. Pick another." I draw. My friend smiled kindly with indulgence. "See, it's not a sheep. It's a ram. It has horns." So I remade my drawing again. But it was refused as the previous ones. "This one is too old. I want a sheep that lives long." Then, with no patience, as I was eager to start disassembling my engine, I scribbled this drawing here. And I threw. "This is the box. The sheep you want is inside it." But I was very surprised to see my young judge's face light up. "That's quite like I wanted. Do you think this sheep will need a lot of grass?" "Why?" "Because at home everything is tiny." "That is probably enough. I gave you a little sheep." He tilted his head to the drawing. "Not so little. Hey, it fell asleep." And that is how I met the little prince. It took me a long time to understand from where he came. The little prince, who asked me a lot of questions, never seemed to understand mine. The words spoken by chance, little by little, are the ones revealing me everything. Thus, when he saw my plane for the first time, "I'll not draw my plane, it's a too complicated drawing for me," he asked me, "What is that thing there?" "That is not a thing, it flies, it's a plane, it's my plane." And I was proud to explain him that I flew. Then he exclaimed, "How? Did you fall from the sky?" "Yes," I said modestly. "Ah, it's funny." And the little prince had a very nice burst of laughter that irritated me a lot. "I want my misfortunes to be taken seriously." Then he added, "Then you also come from the sky. What planet are you from?" I immediately saw a gleam in the mystery of his presence, and I asked abruptly, "So, do you come from another planet?" But he did not answer me. He nodded, softly while watching my plane. "It's true that you can't come from far away." And he sank into a daydream that lasted long. Then, taking my sheep out of his pocket, he immersed himself in the contemplation of his treasure. You imagine how much I had been intrigued by this half-confidence on the other planets. I therefore struggled to learn more. "Where are you from, my little fellow? Where is your home? Where do you want to take my sheep to?" He replied after the meditative silence, "Which is good, with the box you gave me, I mean overnight, to serve as a house. Of course, and if you are nice, I will also give you a rope to tie it during the day, and a picket." The proposal seemed to shock the little prince. "Tie it? What a funny idea! But if you do not tie it, it will go anywhere, it will be lost. And my friend had a new burst of laughter. But where do you want it to go? Anywhere, right in front of it. Then the little prince observed severely, "It doesn't matter, my home is very small." And, with a bit of melancholy, perhaps, he added, "Right in front, nobody can go far away." Thus, I had learned a second very important thing, that his home planet was not much larger than a house. It could not surprise me much. I knew that outside of the big planets like Earth, Jupiter, Mars, Venus, which have been given names, there are hundreds of others that are sometimes so small that it's very hard to see them through the telescope. When an astronomer discovers one of them, he gives it a number as a name. He calls it, for example, asteroid 325. I have serious reasons to believe that the planet where the little prince came from is asteroid B612. This asteroid was seen only once through the telescope in 1909 by a Turkish astronomer. Then he made a great demonstration of his discovery at an international congress of astronomy. However, nobody believed him because of his costume. The grown-ups are like that. Fortunately for the reputation of asteroid B612, a Turkish dictator imposed on his people, on pain of death, to dress like the Europeans. The astronomer remade his demonstration in 1920 in a very elegant garment, and this time everybody accepted his opinion. If I had told you those details on asteroid B612 and gave you its number, it's because of grown-ups. Grown-ups like digits. When you talk to them about a new friend, they never ask you the essential. They never tell you, which is the sound of his voice. What are the games that he prefers? Does he collect butterflies? They ask you, how old is he? How many brothers does he have? Which is his weight? How much money does his father make? Only then they believe they know him. If you tell the grown-ups, I saw a nice red brick house with the geraniums in the windows and doves on the roof, they do not get to imagine this house. It's necessary to tell them, I've seen 100,000 francs house. Then they exclaimed, it's so beautiful. Then, if you tell them, the evidence that the little prince existed is that he was charming, he laughed, and wanted a sheep. When you want a sheep, it is the evidence that you exist. They will shrug and treat you as a child. But if you tell them the planet where he came from is asteroid B612, then they will be convinced and will leave you free of their questions. They are like that. It's not their fault. Children must be very indulgent to the grown-ups. But, of course, we who understand life, we make fun of numbers. I would like to start this story like fairy tales. I would like to say, once upon a time, a little prince who lived in a planet not much bigger than him, and who needed a friend. For those who understand life, it would have seemed much more real. Because I do not like people reading my book recklessly. I feel such sorrow to tell those memories. It's already 6 years since my friend went with his sheep. If I'm here trying to describe him, it is not to forget him. It's sad to forget a friend. Everyone has not had a friend. Then I become like the grown-ups, who are not interested in digits anymore. So, yet, that's why I bought a color box and pencil box. It's hard to get back to the drawing at my age, when you have never made other attempts besides that one of closed boa and an open boa at the age of 6. Of course, I will try to make portraits the most similar as possible, but I'm not absolutely sure that I will succeed. A drawing goes, and the other is not similar anymore. I'm a little wrong about the size as well. Here the little prince is too big. There he is too small. I also hesitate on the color of his costume. Then I grope like this and like that, as best as possible. Finally, I was wrong about some details more important. But he has to forgive me for that. My friend never gave explanations. Maybe he thought I was similar to him. But, unfortunately, I do not know how to see sheep through boxes. Maybe I'm a little like the grown-ups. I must have got older. Every day I learned something about the planet. The departure, the trip. It came slowly, random thoughts. It was so that, on the third day, I knew the drama of the baobabs. This time again, it was thanks to the sheep, because suddenly the little prince asked me, as taken by serious doubt. It's true that sheep eat bushes, isn't it? Yes, it's true. Ah, I'm happy. I did not understand why it was so important that the sheep eat bushes, but the little prince added, therefore, do they also eat baobabs? I pointed out to the little prince that the baobabs are not bushes, but trees as large as churches, and that, even if he took with him a whole herd of elephants, the herd would not overcome a single baobab. The idea of the herd of elephants made the little prince laugh. They should be one of the other. They should be one over the other. But he noticed, with wisdom, the baobabs, before growing, they start being small. That's right, but why do you want your sheep to eat the little baobabs? He answered me. Well, see, as if it was evident, it took me a lot of mental effort to understand only this problem. And indeed, on the planet of the little prince, there was, as in all planets, good plants and weeds. Therefore, good seeds of good plants and bad seeds of weeds. But the seeds are invisible. They sleep in the secret of the ground until one among them is seized with the desire to wake up. Then it stretches and pushes first timidly towards the sun a lovely small harmless twig. If it's a twig of radish or rosebush, we can let it grow as it wants. But if it's a weed, he must tear the plant immediately. He must tear the plant immediately, as soon as it is recognized. Now, there were terrible seeds on the planet of the little prince. Those were the seeds of baobabs. The surface of the planet was infested, but a baobab, if you take too long, you can never get rid of it. It clutters the whole planet. It perforates the planet with its roots, and if the planet is too small and the baobabs are so numerous, they burst it. It's a matter of discipline, the little prince told me later. When he finished his cleaning in the morning, it was necessary to carefully do the cleaning of the planet. He must effort regularly to extract the baobabs as soon as they are distinguished from the roses that they look like a lot when they are very young. It's a very boring work, but very easy. And one day he advised me to apply myself to achieve a beautiful drawing, to instruct the children at home. If they travel one day, he told me, it can be useful to them. Sometimes he conveniently postpones his work. However, if it's the baobabs, it's always a disaster. I've known a planet inhabited by a lazy boy. He has overlooked 3 bushes, and upon the instructions of the little prince, I have drawn this planet here. I do not like to take the tone of a moralist, but the danger of the baobabs is so little known, and the risks faced by those who get lost in an asteroid are so considerable that for once I make an exception to my opposition. I say, children, watch out for the baobabs. It's to warn my friends about the danger they were in for a long time, like myself, without knowing that I've worked so hard on this drawing here. The lesson I gave was worth. You might ask, why is not there in this book other drawings as grandiose as the drawing of the baobabs? The answer is simple. I have tried, but I could not achieve. When drew the baobabs, I was animated by the sense of urgency.